So this is going to be video class notes for Lake Worth, Florida workshop. We started out talking about basic framing ideas and getting into some inswings and the Coleman 3D. So the concept of framing is that your poi planes frame your body. Conversely, your body can also frame your poi plane. So here I am. Poi planes are framing my body. This is normally sort of how we operate with macro poi moves, big poi moves. But we can also, of course, like with a buzzsaw, frame our poi in a variety of ways. But then there's also a lot of really interesting ways that you can move in and out of said frames. And inversions and other things are all part of that. But we played with just getting used to how you can in-swing in and out of this buzzsaw frame in between your arms by taking the poi and flipping the wrist back and forth from the home side into the buzzsaw frame, and then also by pushing and pulling over and under the poi across the other arm to get outside of that frame. And that pushing and pulling might feel a little more like what happens when you thread the needle. Thread the needle involves pushing and pulling, no wrist flipping. This stuff, although it's in wheel plane and not a wall plane sort of thing, is still that same sort of pushing and pulling without wrist flipping. So to get into the Coleman 3, a really simple way to do it is to start out one hand over the other, just dangling them, take the one on the bottom, bring it up through the arm, and flip it over the top. And just sort of repeat that a couple times. When you're comfortable with that, spin the poi with arms crossed and see if you can bring that poi up through the center, put it on top. And once you can repeat that without extra lockout beats, then you'll be doing a Coleman 3, which looks a lot like a 3D weave unless you're looking at what the wrists are doing and the arms are doing. There's no wrist flipping. The poi is sort of coming up through the buzzsaw frame close to the armpits and hopping over the top. For the reverse version, it's all backwards. You're taking the arm on top, down and through. You can repeat the same steps to learn the reverse version. If you can do forwards and reverse, you can turn with them. And we also pointed out that this is a really fun way to get involved with crossers. With a crosser, when you're not using an in-swing, if you want to switch which arm is on top, you sort of have to come around and get there, or then maybe you actually have to weave over here for a second to get that arm back on top. But if you're comfortable with in-swings, you can just throw one of those through the middle, all slick-like, go back in your crosser. The other thing we brought up is head leading and hand leading isolations. So one of the things that helps with these sort of in-swing based moves is if you can take your poi handle and drag the poi head around your wrist. My hand and the handle is leading, dragging the poi head, which is following as it sort of isolates around the wrist. Apply that to something like a Coleman to get this fun sort of effect. Of course, if you can drag the handle around the wrist and the head follows, you can also play with isolating such that the head gets flicked around, the head leads, and then your hand chases. And getting used to both of those sort of movements is really useful. Then, when you're framing these moves, if you're in wheel plane, your arms are out long, creating this long, thin frame, gives you a lot of space. When you move to wall plane, it's sort of squat, it's flat, your elbows are out, so it's this very wide frame so that you have space to have a poi in between your arms there. And it's really useful to play with moving from sort of wheel plane with a long frame, folding to a flat frame, long plane, or long frame, flat frame. Getting used to that your body has to move dynamically through this while you're turning and playing with the poi. When we were in wall plane, not only were we doing some of the crosser things, we were also playing with this exercise where we are dangling the poi and sort of just flipping one over right here in wall plane. Flipping one over in wall plane so that we get used to this flat frame in front of us. And that very naturally can turn into butterfly or thread the needle move with inswings. The simplest one is from a together time thread the needle. That's a 2-beat thread the needle. This is an inward thread the needle. Every time the hand draws back under the other hand, that's when you would in-swing, flipping your wrist in. So this is taking a move that normally only has pushing and pulling and no wrist flipping, and we're drawing back and adding a wrist flip, such that we're literally turning our wrist in, and it's almost like we're drawing a circle on our tummy. Notice the side-to-side movement. That's my arms moving back and forth, elongating the frame so that I can more comfortably flip through there. We covered split time 3-beat thread the needle because I feel like a lot of this butterfly in-swinging stuff is more comfortable from that. You have more time. You have 3 rotations. You have a whole extra rotation on each side before you have to do your next in-swing. The keys to learning split time thread the needles are that because it's a split time move, the poi are meeting on the horizon, on the left and right. So there's a horizontal mirror line rather than a vertical one. And because of that, we're taking and stacking the hands one next to the other and crossing over. So see, I'm putting my hands next to each other horizontally rather than stacking one on top of the other. And taking turns, crossing over and stacking next to. And from there you can take the extra rotations out and learn split time 3-beat thread the needle. And this is a nice one also. As your hand is coming back underneath, you swing up and in. For any of these in reverse, you just flip it upside down. So you're going to take the hand that's coming back over the top and drop it down. This brings up another framing idea. So there's a moment when my poi is swinging right past my arm, and my arm and the poi create another frame so that I can send my opposite poi right through that little pocket, that frame. And that's what I'm looking for when I'm doing this split time 3-beat thread the needle. In fact, where are the sticks? The poi are moving in split time opposite direction. There's a moment when they're coming together on the horizon where this poi and this arm make that pocket, and I'm sending the other one right through that frame. They come all the way over here. Now there's a frame on this other side, and this poi has dropped out of it. And they come all the way around again, and this one comes through that frame again. So there's a whole bunch of aiming to get the poi in between this frame that the other poi and arm make. And that gives you a real good focus for like where and when to slip your arms through.